And you didn't hear any of that because I didn't have my audio on. Yay, I was doing this because I felt like a bobblehead because the way this is positioned, I have a huge head. Very bizarre today. So aside from technical difficulties, I'm actually using my old computer, which has been giving me the most grief because my new computer's video isn't working. So after this, I'm racing out to get a video camera because I'm done with the computer video things. They're just not working for me at all. Hi, Jason, how are you?
Good, Rusty. How are you doing?
I really don't have an inflated head. It's up there. I usually try to move it so it fits proportionately, but if I do that, then this camera doesn't work. So you're just gonna have to do, oh, there we go. The camera's out. Anyway, Jason, Mercury's in retrograde. How do you feel about that?
I have no idea what that means.
It just means that anything and everything that's technical is just gonna screw up for the next 2 months. It's really exciting.
Well, I work full-time in IT, so I hope that's not the case. I have a big project coming to an end. I really need it to land smoothly.
Jason, who are you? What do you do? And why do you do what you do?
Well, I am a podcaster, professional speaker, and coach. So I do all those things in order to help other people succeed at what they do. I try to help people be better tomorrow, which is the name of my show, by finding industry experts of various kinds, wringing their brain for all the useful information I can find, and just making those connections between my listeners and those folks so that we can all do something today to be better tomorrow.
I am all about doing the best that you can with what you have. And that's what Living and Thriving thrives on is, you know, you stub your toe, what do? Of course, you're going to drop an F-bomb or two, and you're going to hold your toe and compress it and pray that it feels better and stops throbbing. And then you're going to walk forward. That's kind of life. And in this time period, we're going through quite a bit. You look a little younger than me, so I don't know.
I look a lot younger than I am. I'm actually, based on your email address, I'm only 2 years younger than you. So.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, happy 2-year younger birthday.
Thanks.
This has been kind of a wild ride. Like, I'm a 90s girl. I'm a grunge girl. I like my flannels and my torn jeans and my skateboard.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'm with you.
Just not grooving on this whole weird conspiracy theory, angry, vitriol, weird, non-communicative. Like, when we were growing up, I was a part of the debate club. Loved it. Mm-hmm. You would have to study both ends of the sword and have a conversation. And so when you're all about love and light and finding the best part of you, what are the steps that you take or advise people to take to stay away from what's going on right now?
Staying away may not always be the right case. People have to kind of determine what for themselves, what's useful. I know a lot of people right now are just stepping away from things like social media because those interactions, by their very nature, can be unhealthy and unhelpful. People are talking at one another, they're screaming into the ether, but they're not really having conversations with people. I'm like you, I process out loud. I have to ask questions that may seem rudimentary and kind of turn an idea over by talking through it normally. And I find I get in a lot of trouble on social media when I do that, just because people assume the worst intentions. Which is kind of another piece. Just assume positive intent. Unless you know the person's a jerk, assume that, you know, they just made a mistake or said something wrong or you misunderstood them, because that's always a possibility. I find that tends to keep the peace with people. I've been working on a project recently where I had a troubled person on the team, and I just kept bumping heads with them. And finally they said something that made me go, they're just looking out for their team like I'm looking out for mine. Well, now I can respect that, because all the trouble they've been giving me wasn't because they wanted to give me trouble. It's because they're trying to do the right thing by their people. I can respect that, and we can come to an agreement on that if I just assume positive intent.
I always assume, even if you think, you know, I guess my perspective is a little different, and sometimes I'm not invited to parties because of it. You know, the jerkier you are, the more curious I am. And I say that with kindness because we don't really know what somebody's going through.
True.
We don't know what their personal baggage is. I know for my generation, at least, personal things stayed behind closed doors. You didn't really talk about it. There wasn't social media where you know, womp, womp, womp all the time. And right. There wasn't, you know, you made your 8-track tape or of your favorite songs and you just sat in your room and you kind of mulled over life. Now it's like, people make things really public or they don't. Does it make sense?
Yeah, I've seen both sides of that. People are, basically spouting all their dirty laundry out on Facebook, and it's like, I don't know that that's helpful in any sense of the word. Like, you're not going to really repair a relationship that way. You may get people to side with you, and that'll help you, but I don't know. I'm kind of like you. My family didn't talk a whole lot about things growing up. Kind of that Appalachian stoic, just suck it up and deal with it kind of mindset,
Yeah,
which
we
is
were
fine.
Appalachian too. Gosh, that's a whole cup of water to drink.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. We can talk about hillbilly elegy another time.
Yeah. Next show.
Extra. But yeah, that's that kind of stuff. Well, I've discovered getting out and dealing with my wife, we've been married for 17 years. She's also Appalachian, and so there's just a lot of those things that went unsaid, and so we just had to, okay, stop. What are we assuming here with each other? I swear, for the first 10 years, every conversation started, I'm not trying to start a fight. Where do we go from here? Because we just had to put those defenses up to keep both of us from lashing out or just snapping.
I wonder what that's about though, because you know, we in my fantasy world, and we all have that. We all have what we think is supposed to happen versus what reality is.
Sure.
But in my fantasy world, I always thought that people were more communicative and more, like after Baptist church, because I grew up Southern, we would have family barbecues and the kids, all of us kids would run around the yard and play tag and, whose boyfriend's whose and that kind of thing. Like there was a more,
Wait, you said it was all family, right?
no, no,
Oh.
no, not that kind of Appalachia. Um, but I did play the violin, not the banjo.
Oh. It's the
But
fiddle.
the fiddle, yeah.
Yeah.
So my growing up perspective is we had our issues. We had a lot of issues, but we were still a community at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow, somewhere, that transpired into we're staying in our house. We don't talk to anybody. We don't go to barbecues. We don't. And if we do events, it's by obligation versus sincerity. How did that transpire into, geez, I have to go over to my in-laws' house because I have to, they're my in-laws, versus, oh, I'm so excited about going and sharing what's happened in the last 3 months or whatever?
I hate to sound like the old grognard, but I think a lot of it has to do with the internet and the way it's made more unique communities available to everybody. I think everybody had to be a little bit more balanced and central. You may have had that one guy who had a weird hobby that nobody in 100 miles was interested in, and he was alone and he knew that. Whereas now, no matter how unique you are, there's probably a community of people that have a shared interest. And so we don't have to find ways to communicate with people that aren't necessarily like us. And that includes family. Sometimes you have that background with family, but it's too much effort. When we didn't have the internet and our phones to pick up, that was our only option. And we just had to figure it out. We had to tough through it. And if you didn't, then you were ostracized as a black sheep and you were lonely and you probably died alone because there's no internet to hang out with people on. But I think we've lost kind of that ability to adjust and learn to deal with people who are different from us because of forced interaction. Like you said, you went over to that family, and whether you had a fight with your cousin the week before, or your friend the week before, you're still going to go over to that house and have barbecue, and you're either going to, have another fight or you're going to work it out. Eventually, hopefully work it out. But I don't know that we're exercising those muscles anymore.
I love it. That's perfect, because I think in this time period, I don't know about you and your wife, but I'm absolutely loving this time. I'm loving having the freedom and the space and the time to heal, reflect, meditate, do the things that really spiritually keep me in tune. And a lot of people are finding this space to be very scary, and they're not able to connect even this way, which is why I started the video series on top of the radio show. What do you talk to your clients about in regards to trying to connect human wise during this time? Because some of us really dig it and others are becoming more recluse.
Yeah, I just wrote from a work perspective on how to do some things differently through a virtual workforce. Everyone's trying to figure that out now. The president of my company actually just wrote a book about it because our company's been virtual for 20 years. We see each other as a whole family twice, maybe 3 times a year where we all get together, but it feels like a family reunion in that case. There's a lot of things we can do just to keep up on one another. One of the big things I think is make extra time for the small talk. We're not walking down the hallways by people's desks anymore and just, oh, hey, new picture of your kids. How are they doing? So we get on a call and it feels more formal. And then we have to jump right into business. We miss that just interpersonal connection with folks. I teach a course based on John Maxwell's book called Everyone Communicates and Few Connect. And part of that is going out of your way to make those connection points or find a place to connect with people. It's like 6 degrees to Kevin Bacon in a way, because I can always think there's something we can connect with. It doesn't matter how different we are. There's got to be something, whether it's the fact we both have animals or dogs, cats, kids, something has got to find a connection point for us. And from there, we can start to really care about each other in not a fake way, but in a real way, because now we have that connection point to start with. But you have to be intentional about finding that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting. Like you, I was in IT for a lot of years. And, I've been certified by Cisco, HP, all the way down the gamut. Did a lot for high-end security implementations for hospitals. And
Okay.
so I feel you on the technology piece very strongly because I lived it for so long, traveling around the world. And when this whole process happened, I was really awestruck about how fortunate you and I are because of perspective and our, your current role, my past role. I stopped technology in 2008. And how difficult or overwhelming it was to work from home for some people. I've been working from home since I was 24. So it's like, this is not that much of a curve. It's actually kind of nice, but it really shocked people.
Yeah, it did.
How do you handle individuals with technological deficiencies, I suppose?
Well, I think everyone's learning to get over that pretty quickly now. Zoom has kind of become a second language. I think it's become the default that people go to. Some people use Skype or whatnot, but I don't know that I've had a lot of people dealing with that particular struggle, other than trying to find ways to socialize. We were playing Jackbox games at night with folks. Just find ways to get together and interact with somebody. I'm in a unique state because not only do I usually work from home, but we homeschool. So everyone's complaining about my normal life. Is basically their worst nightmare. Their kids are home, they're working from home. They're like, guys, it's not that bad. First of all, what you're doing is not homeschooling. You're being forced to act out someone else's plan, which is always painful when you try to live someone else's, path. So deal with that the best you can. But at the same time, we've got to be able to come together. I think this is maybe part of that. I hate the phrase, but new normal. People are going to be doing technology a little bit more. We've already talked to multiple big corporations that are leaving part of their workforces at home because the CFOs realize they can save a ton of money by not having office space if people can work from home. I think we realize
than that, it's not only office space, but it's liability insurance. It's having the extra staff. You really don't need it. You can rent it now.
Yeah. Well, and those of us who now don't have to do a 2-hour commute each day are like, I don't want to go back to that.
No.
So.
Yeah, no, I'm good. And I like the fact that I'm actually, I'm teaching at universities internationally now, and I'm able to put together conferences. You know how you used to have to fly across country, in the technology, for those of you who don't understand the world of technology, Chicago is a major hub for technological conferences. McCormick Center, I swear to God, I lived at, and I lived in Maine, but I was always going to a conference at McCormick in Chicago. You don't need to do that anymore. You literally just have this conversation and it's one and done. So you're saving on airfare, you're saving on so much. And I love the fact that some of the technological ground pavers like Google, who I've wanted to work for my whole entire existence, they've already said, nope, we're just going to be virtual. That's it. Why not?
Yeah, there's still something to be said for being in person with people in those conferences. It's kind of that experience, but I think there'll be many more options to do things virtually. But I think there'll still be some groups that just want to get together. Like once this COVID year is over, or whenever it's over, it's more than a year. I think our company will be getting back together every year, 2 or 3 times, just because we don't see each other without that. And there's connections to be made. And what we haven't figured out virtually is the networking aspect. It's great for monologue. It's fine for a sermon, for somebody to stand up there and do a keynote to speak to all the people in the virtual world. But the 20 of us can't break off on a session to discuss our personal business lines. I can't meet somebody face to face as easily in a virtual conference and exchange business cards. That's the part we haven't figured out yet. I'm interested to see what opportunities pop up for people developing those solutions, but I haven't seen anything good yet.
Isn't that why Facebook did the private rooms where you can, invite multiple people? I mean, most of
Yeah,
us now have two computers in the household. It's not like when
at
you and I
least.
were kids and we had a phone that connected to the wall and a
Yeah,
to run the toaster.
yeah, yeah. That's true. You had to dial, and you had to use one of those phone lines to dial up to AOL back in the day.
That's
But
right. I
um,
still hear that noise, buzz.
yeah, and Zoom has the option to break out into rooms. But then, if you're looking at a large conference, there's just those hallway conversations where you meet people, or at the vendors table where you meet people. I don't know that that's been replicated well yet. I think people will still be anxious to get back to some sort of in-person thing as far as conferences go. At least I hope so. I enjoy them at some
I'm a
point.
Chotsky-aholic, so I really hope so. I
Yeah,
love gathering my Chotskys.
yeah, yeah. You just decorate your office with the stuff you get from conferences. You're pretty good.
Well, I have a teenage daughter too. You have no idea how
Mhm.
much we go through.
Yeah,
So
all of our
Jason,
water bottles, I think, are tchotchkes of some kind that have been passed around.
it's true. It's true. Backpacks, water bottles.
Mm.
So Jason, where do we find more information about you, and why do you feel so inclined to have your podcast? What burns your soul? What gets you out of bed in the morning?
Yeah, it's bebettertomorrow.com is the site for the podcast and pretty much everything else I do. So you can check it out there, check out some recent interviews and episodes. I just really want to create the thing that I wish had existed. I'm looking for people who are looking to change and improve and find those little tips. So I've done conversations with people in marketing spaces, how to use a virtual assistant, authors, guys who are into improv and use that as a coaching mechanism. But I also have done some sessions on the cognitive biases that hinder us in a day-to-day walk. If you're not aware of the curse of knowledge, for example, that's where you know something so well, you assume everybody knows it, and then you don't communicate. You make assumptions in your communication, and it hinders your ability to communicate with people. If you're not aware that that happens, you won't adjust for it. And if you don't adjust for it, you don't communicate well. Just these little things that I wish somebody had pointed out to me, kind of like the way you and I were talking earlier. There's a communication gap of how do you talk to people who you disagree with? How do you address those kind of issues? What are the things that you need to be thinking about to intentionally live your life the way you want to and to make your future self happy? And we always say, oh, that's future Jason's problem. Well, that's a horrible way to look at things. Future Jason should be happy with me 10 years from now with the decisions that I made. Otherwise, I'm going to be really upset.
Well, and I always say that we're just this big, beautiful, flawed sack of water surfing on a rock, going through eternity with no control over anything. And we take things way too seriously. We get way caught up in our head. If we were to just lighten up a little bit, I
Mm-hmm.
think I think that would make a huge improvement all around the board. Um, there's just really, life is so short
It
that
is.
we just make it too complicated. I mean, it's really not that complicated. You wake up, you rinse, you repeat, but have some fun in between, right?
Yeah. Well, I feel like since thousands of years ago, we were struggling to survive. Now we're not struggling to survive, and we're still looking for something that critical. So everything becomes drama. Teenage daughter, I've got one myself. Everything's drama. Everything's serious. It's the end of the world. Like, you won't even know what this thing happened 2 months from now. Just relax.
Yeah, there was a woman who's on one of those Facebook memes, and she does this thing. She's doing this little thing about her daughter in going to drama club and how she must be trying out for different parts with the drama club. And I was busting out laughing. I was like, oh, I see that girl. I see that.
Yeah.
My favorite is when they slam the door going, oh my God, you just don't understand me. Well, you didn't tell me what's
Right.
going on, so how can I understand you?
Yeah. Well, even if you did, it's not like I wasn't a teenager or dealt with,
You were never
I
a
understand more than you
girl.
think. That's true.
It's way
That's true.
different. Guys had it so much easier.
I told my wife that, like, guys, we would just, if there was a fight, there was no this backstabbing, like, nasty stuff. We just go fight, and then we were friends. Like, bloody noses, walking back. Okay, we're good now. We're fine. But girls like just seem to keep going at it. There's never a settlement. I don't know how to help.
No, you just you just get some popcorn, sell some tickets.
Yeah.
You do you.
I've joked about putting our kids in a cage in the backyard. Just go, you 2 kids enter, 1 kid leaves. I don't care. Just figure.
MMA, yes.
That's right. They're not fans. We'll see.
Why did you start doing what you do? What was the, everybody wants a better version of themselves. That's the whole
Yeah.
reason why we exist. We experience and then have expectation or learn or experience again. But what was really the pivotal part for you?
It's kind of what has always driven me. I started out going to school for ministry and was doing that, helping teenagers for a lot of years. And a lot of that same kind of stuff from a more biblical perspective. Stepped away from that, got into more of a consulting role and doing an IT job, but still always had that drive to do that. I guess the soft skills part. Even when I was more hard into technology, which I'm not now, I thank God. Nobody wants me coding anything, but I do the translation between business and technology. But those soft skills, I think, especially watching the education system, I don't know that we're getting it. We're teaching to a certain test, but what we're not helping people do is to interact and learn how to respond to one another in a productive way. So it's just those kind of things. Like I said, I wanted to figure that out. I want to help people accomplish their dreams. I love being able to connect people. If I know somebody who needs a thing and I know somebody who does that thing, setting those two up so that they can have better success. I love that kind of stuff. So coaching is kind of the next step of that for me, to be able to work with an individual and say, hey, what is it you're looking to do? Okay, let me just ask some questions and hold you accountable and help you dig through the process. Because oftentimes these dreams that we have or these ideas that we have, they're so clouded with everyday life that you need somebody to help you dig right down to the core of it and go, here's what it is. Here's your next step. Go do it. Let's talk about it next time.
I feel you on the education system. I started out as a paraeducator, a special needs teacher when I graduated college. And my daughter, 15, fell very sick this January. So she was actually in quarantine before all of the COVID stuff.
Oh, goodness.
She had an extreme version of mono, like crazy extreme.
Mono's pretty extreme, so that's scary.
Well, a normal blood test, like if a normal person got mono, their blood level would be 47. Hers is 435.
Jeez.
So it's like beyond Epstein-Barr. It's Epstein-Barr on steroids.
Okay.
So anyway, I had to deal with the school to try to get her back on track, because here's an honor roll student. She's a freshman in high school. It's already bizarre. And now she's really sick. So what do we do? And it turned out that all they did was policy. They were policying me to death. And I'm like,
right.
Time out. A, I'm a teacher. B, I understand technology. And C, you're an educator. So you come at me with a solution, not a problem. You're coming at me with a problem. And it's very concerning to me as a parent and as a human in society to see that our education system is more about policy than it is actually educating the students. I don't know if you've been into a classroom recently in the last 10 years.
Nope.
On the clocks in elementary school, they have 15-minute stickers. So every 15 minutes, they change the subject. And I'm like, well, these kids don't have ADHD. You're doing this.
Right. Like, how do you even get any deep work done?
There's no solution.
Because that takes like at least 20, 25 minutes to get into a rhythm of that deep work, according to Newport's books.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling. So now with the school shootings, and just if you didn't know, my high school many moons ago was one of the first high schools in the country to have a school shooting. My best friend was shot. But that was early 90s. And nothing transpired until, the last few years. So that's really bizarre there, historically. But now the kids go to school, like my daughter's high school is huge. It's brand new, technologically advanced, blah, 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 fancy schmancy. But they're not allowed to have the windows open. They're not even allowed to have the curtains up.
Oh, geez.
So they're literally in a dark concrete box with 15-minute intervals of next subject. They're stressed out because they don't know who's going to shoot who. They already have bullying issues. They already have their own perceived stuff going on.
Sure.
And now there's COVID and civil unrest. So as a parent, one parent to another, and you have a little bit more of an advantage. Like mine's actually going to college in August, so I feel a little spoiled. because she's 15. But what are your thoughts about coaching people to get them back into school? Like, it's not, I mean, these kids have such high anxiety anyway, much less having to go to school that they don't even know.
Yeah, I'd have to ask a lot of questions on an individual level. I mean, that's things you listed there are like reasons 565 that we homeschool.
Yeah.
To not have to deal with a lot, it was the policy issues that kind of drove us out. Our daughter went to school and was kind of advanced, and so their idea of helping was giving her twice the homework. So we were doing 5 hours of homework in first grade. So you can imagine the tears. We're like, you know what? We can deal with this on our own in less time. We brought her home and she's never wanted to go back. Just enjoyed it. She's doing college courses now. There's a couple of opportunities with COVID that schools are opening their doors. So she's getting some of that stuff done, finding out what she's really interested in. I know not everyone has the opportunity to do stuff like that, but if we could find ways to individualize and give some freedom to the education system and not policy everyone to death, that would be wonderful. I just don't know how you change a bureaucracy whose incentives are not to improve, but to make sure that the criteria are met for those policies. It's going to take something massive.
I think that's where we're at. I'm just wondering, parent to parent, coach to coach, how we can, because we're both doing basically the same thing, but I think we could take advantage of what we do, team up, and help kids get through the coping process of the new, what did you call it, new norm? I don't watch
The new
TV.
normal.
I mean, yeah, that.
Yeah, that's whatever it's referring to as whatever we come out of it. This will be the new normal, as if things will change drastically. And I think they may for a short period of time, but I don't know that they'll change for a long period of time.
I don't know. I'm excited to find out, though.
Yeah, I think there's some opportunities for good changes. I just have no confidence in large bureaucracies to make positive change. So I will be interested to see what happens. Individuals, I think, can make it. I'm talking to a lot of people now who are, off work or have more opportunities because they're not commuting to really start to drive and figure out what they want to do. And I've talked to a lot of people doing that on an individual level. Large scale change is difficult, especially when you have to get it through a larger system. So maybe education changes. I think college is kind of the first opportunity to do that. ASU, Arizona State, is doing a lot of changing around this time and the way they're going to deliver things. There's a great Freakonomics episode where they talk to the president there what they're doing. And I think colleges especially are going to have to change or die because nobody's going to pay full price for virtual education.
No. And larger than that, I don't think, I mean, even California, there's quite a few colleges that are just strictly online for this year. They're not even playing because we don't really know the direction of where this virus is going, where the civil unrest is going, where
right.
these confounded things are happening. And yeah, they're going to have to really figure out, and unfortunately that's going to cost jobs and downsize, but
yes.
We're running out of time. What are the top 5 things that you would recommend people to do right now to be a better version of themselves? Simple things that people can start on right now.
Top 5 things.
Doesn't have to be 5. I mean, if you only have 3, it's fine.
Sure. I think one of the most important things is to take time for introspection. Our world is such that we don't have opportunities to do that. And unless you're intentional, you're not going to do it. And that includes things like, how could I have done this better? What did I go wrong with today? And what could I have done differently so you can change it next time? Journaling is a great opportunity to write some of those things down, and it really makes it concrete in your life. When you kind of put pen to paper and write things down, you can review it. Even if you don't review it, the act of writing it makes it more real to you. And then once you understand kind of those day-to-day steps of what you're doing, understand where it is you want to go. So many people are living a life that they just stumbled into and have never really thought about where they want to be and how they can get there. So, I think Thoreau said most men lead lives of quiet desperation. And I think too often people are there. We are in a really wonderful place where for the most part, we don't have to worry about what we're surviving. I know you have a great story about that, where you came out of an environment like that, but most of us aren't there. But we don't take the time then to really seek something above and beyond where we're living day by day, whether it's paycheck to paycheck or whether it's just Netflix show to Netflix show. There's so much opportunity for doing fun things and meeting great people that if you could find an opportunity to do that, you should. And really understanding where you want to go. So at the end of your life, you're not like, well, I wish I'd have done everything under the sun, but I didn't. But I did finish House of Cards or whatever the Netflix show is of the day that we're stuck binging.
Yeah,
And then
that's
find great.
like when you and I were growing up, we were, I don't know about your household, but my household, if I got my sweet rice, which is a Southern delicacy, that means you don't have any Rice Krispies. So you have to have boiled rice with sugar and milk, right?
Mhm.
And then you were kicked out, the door was locked, and you were gone for the day. Whatever
Yeah,
you did, you did. And come back bleeding, you got your ass whooped for doing something stupid that caused you to bleed, right? That was
yeah. Come back when the street lights come on.
That's it. Or your middle name. But now you can't, kids don't go out. They're stuck on their phone. They're stuck on TV shows. Minecraft,
Yeah.
I think, is something. Sims is something. Like, I play
Yeah,
video games. I'm a Sonic baller, right? Nobody knows what that means anymore. They don't know what a Sega Genesis is.
I'm with you. The A, B, and C button. We're good.
but I mean, we still went out and did stuff. We still had bonfires in the woods. I'm not recommending that, but I'm saying, that was
Sure.
a norm. Why?
Yeah, but boredom is a great motivator. Like, people get bored, they start to invent things. They start to come up with ideas that they wouldn't have come up with if they were playing a game on their phone. My kids get bored all the time, and I tell them to find something creative to do, and they amaze me with what they come up with when they're actually pressured to do it. But that's discomfort. Sometimes you have to go through discomfort to get somewhere good. And it's not a muscle we're used to flexing.
That is true. I love it. That's where I'm going to end with you. And where do we find more information about you? Because I'm sure people will love to know how to talk to you a little bit more.
Sure. Bebettertomorrow.com. It's got everything you need.
Groovy. Thank you, Jason.
Thanks, Rusty.
You're watching Living and Thriving with Rusty. I am Rusty, and that was Jason Fisher from Bebetter.com. And what I love about what he's doing is he is encouraging, supporting, and relying on you to make the choice to be a better version of yourself. And you have to kind of want to work at it. And sometimes you have to just let stuff go. Our feet are faced this way forward because we don't walk backwards. Can't do anything about yesterday. All you can do is walk forward. And even if you fall flat on your butt, you can still find resources to get up. Those are the simple rules of life. Not complicated. We overcomplicate things. I also happen to fully agree with get off your phone. If your kids are still on their video games and stuff like that, turn the Wi-Fi off. You have that capability. You know how to do it. Unplug the damn thing. It's that simple. Unplug it. Get them to be creative. Get them to communicate to each other. Let's learn how to be a better version of ourselves. I love it. It's awesome. Know that you're beautiful. Know that you're loved. Be kind to yourself, more importantly, so that you can be kind to other people. And like I'm always saying, find ways to be of service. The post office needs people to buy stamps. People need cards in the mail. 2 people are winning out of this. Actually 3, because you win for doing a good thing. Until next time.